Thank you, Matt. And I really take that as a compliment because Matt's been around some great coaches, Hubie Brown at Memphis and some other great coaches around the league, and I really, truly take it as a compliment. Because as you know as coaches, you know, our lives are like this. If you're a professional coach or if you've been in coaching a long time, you know there's good days and bad days, and the way you handle the bad days is going to probably determine your success. You know, and that's kind of the way I like to live is making sure we handle the tough days in our lives, because you're going to have some. Whether it's a young man or young lady that you're working with, having a problem at home, problem learning the zone offense or out-of-bounds play or handling the basketball, whatever level it is always going to be something. So as a teacher, as a coach, it's always handling the tough times. You just noticed an NBA shoot-around. Today wasn't a typical shoot-around. We kind of came in extra today for you guys because we had our regular shoot-around yesterday, a full shoot-around. And the main reason for that is because it's an early game today, and anytime we have an early game on Sunday, we usually do our shoot-arounds the day before. So our shoot-arounds we have to treat as practices because of the fact we're such a young team that we cannot waste any time. And it's kind of not the NBA norm because with a veteran team like we had in Dallas last year, we had to have time off because our point guard was 39 years old going on 40. And so we had to save as much as possible with him. But with a young team, we have to utilize our practices. We came in the other day after a shoot-around, after a back-to-back. And the main reason for that wasn't because of punishment, because we had beat New Orleans. It was because practice days are precious for us right now because we have very few of them, and we have to make sure we win the practices as well as the games, try to win the games. For us this year, that's kind of my approach, win the practices. Because if we don't go out and practice and try to get something out of it, then it's a lost day. And we can't afford to have lost days. Just like today, we held Andrea Bagnani, who's been out for a while, who's kind of behind on some new sets that we're going to have to try to force feed him to get him back up to speed on some of the sets, because there's a big difference of standing on the sidelines watching versus being out there on the floor. So those are the kind of the thought processes we're going through now with our practices and as far as what we're doing, what we did today. But again, we treat shoot-arounds just like a practice. We do our shell drill. We do our defensive drills. We do our offensive sets because I don't feel like a coach you can drill your offensive sets enough. Repetition, repetition, repetition with your offensive plays or your fundamentals. And that's something that when I was a college coach at the University of Kentucky that I didn't realize about the NBA of how important even coaching and teaching the fundamentals are in the NBA. I thought in the NBA you just roll the ball out and they just play basketball, and that is totally not true. We emphasize, especially with young players, the fundamentals as much as far as footwork, stance, talking. You cannot talk enough. The hardest thing I think in the NBA to get an NBA player to do is talk. Is talk. Whether back screen, down screen. Okay, I'm coming to screen you. This is talking to me. This is talking. Pointing is talking. All those communication guidelines are so important. One, it helps us to work together. It ties us together as teammates. Two, it tells the other team that we're tied together. Well, these guys know what they're doing. They're together. They got enthusiasm. They're ready to play when you're talking. A talking team tells you how connected that team is, if that team is talking. And a lot of times young players will not talk because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And I tell guys all the time, I don't care if you say something wrong, say something. And because most of the time guys will be reluctant to say because they're not sure whether it's a down screen, back screen, or whatever the action is. Most of the time I've found that's why they don't talk, is because they're not sure. So it's on us as coaches to make sure we keep reinforcing talk, whether you say something wrong or not, communication, because sooner or later they're going to get the action right, and now you really have something at that time. And again, I've been a college coach. I was at the University of Kentucky, Western Kentucky, graduate assistant at University of Kentucky, and through the years, those fundamentals have been very, very consistent. Stance, talking, and on any championship level, you know, everybody talks about, you know, we want to score 110 points, 120 points, and all that. But how many teams have you seen, whether it's college, high school, or the NBA, that have won championships that are this type of team? Now, unless it's a high school team that has all the best players in your city, that could be the case. But as you move up higher, defense wins. Defense wins the championship. And when we first went to Dallas, it was the same challenge we had coming here. It was changing the culture from an offensive mentality to a defensive mentality. That's the hardest thing to do in sports, is to change that culture. But to win a championship, you've got to be together defensively. And when we went to Dallas, Dirk Nowitzki didn't want to hear defense. You know, he says, "Coach, my defense is my offense." But by the end of year 3, he was talking, he was communicating. Dirk was down in a stance. He took pride in his defense because it's something we preached and worked on, and it became a habit. You know, talking's a habit, stance is a habit. It's what you emphasize each and every day is what's going to become important to your players. So all those things are very achievable goals for you as a coach, as a high school coach, elementary coach, whatever level. Those fundamentals are going to be the same. And I've had the opportunity to work for a lot of great coaches in my coaching career. Coach Joe B. Hall at the University of Kentucky, coach who worked under Coach Rupp at the University of Kentucky. Believe me, the fundamentals were just as important then as they are now. And that's something I've learned. And I learn every day. And if, as a coach or a teacher, you don't learn each and every day, it's the time to change professions. Because, you know, even now, I'm a sponge. I could learn, I'm sure, a drill that some of you guys, ladies, have from your school. And, you know, you never stop learning. You being here today is a great compliment to you because you're here to learn. You're here to pick up, if it's just something little, whether it's a word, a phrase, or a drill, or terminology, whatever it is, it's something you can take back and help your young ladies, young men to accomplish. And what I like to do is answer any questions that you might have about basketball, Dallas, University of Kentucky, high school in the States, whatever it is, offense, defense, I'll try to answer it. Uh-huh.
1, 2, 1, 2.
And by the way, these little pieces of paper we have all of our drills listed, plays listed on the back of them. We have all our drills with a time, how long we want to go with each one of them on the front. As you can see my scribbles, I make notes to myself, and I keep these after practice. I have I've got boxes because over the years I've kept each and every drill, whether it's at college or Dallas or Minnesota or Seattle. So I've got boxes, and my wife is all over me about when am I going to throw away those boxes. But I've kept them over the years. I need to find somebody to program them and download them on the computer. But the organization is very important, and we do the same thing here. I'm sorry.
Wow. Hey, Dwayne, my question is about, you said changing the culture to defense, obviously with the team and bringing those habits in, but with a particular individual, and we've noticed, or some of us have noticed the changes with Andrea Bargnani. Can you talk to how you've done that and how you've talked to an individual to emphasize defense to them, like Dirk or Andrea?
Right. Well, with Dirk, it was, you know, Dirk had faced so many setbacks as a player. If you remember correctly, they had gotten beat in the first round the year before with Golden State. The year before that, they got beat in the finals by Miami, a very tenacious, defensive-minded team. So he had a reference to go back to say, hey, this is what we got to do. This is the kind of team we got to be to win. I've scored a lot of points. I've done everything I can do offensively. The only thing I haven't done is bought in defensively. So that selling point to him was the most important thing. I think you have to find with a young lady or young man what is important to him and approach the change of culture from that standpoint. If he has a goal or she has a goal to get to, this is how you're going to get there. With Andrea, he scored points all over the world, all right? But to win, and using the Dirk example with him, he's a lot like Dirk as far as a player. Both guys are very skilled for their size. To believe it or not, Andrea is far more athletic than Dirk. You know, so he has a leg up on him. Dirk has the experience right now. But using Dirk as an example, putting him in the same situations as we put Dirk in Dallas, has really helped Andrea and helped really sell the point how important defense is. And he's that close to being an all-star. If he hadn't gotten hurt, he was on track, not only for his offense, but every coach that I talked to that I was really pushing him for was how just like you said, the change in his approach defensively. Now, our challenge now is when he comes back from injury this time is to maintain that defensive focus and that level of intensity on the defensive end as a player. But Andrea is a smart young man. He's from a basketball background. He played for Coach Messina, who was a great European coach as a young kid. So he's had a defensive background in his past. Now, somewhere along the way, you know, but again, it's there. He's one of our best pick and roll defenders that we have because of his length, his quickness, his speed, athleticism. So he's been a joy for me to work with. You know, I'm sad that he didn't have a chance to play as many games because of the injury, but going forward, it's going to be fun working with him and implementing him into the defensive things we want to do. But again, you have to find something there in their personality or in their goal process to make sure that it connects with where you're trying to go with your culture. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep. It always fascinates me when I watch basketball, especially with my kid, the game within the game. Before a rebound, pulling a guy just for a split second, pushing him away so he can't get into his jump for rebounding. So you work very hard to get your 1 second advantage, which is very important in this sport to free up a player. So I'm thinking, where is that coached? Do you have veterans show other players that are coming up how to do that? Do you have coaches coach kind of the kind of the slightly illegal parts of the sport? Right. And then at this level, answer that. And then when would you kind of try to cover these concepts with younger players?
That's a good question. The NBA, what I've learned more than anything else is the game within the game, the nuances of the game, the little things. Like you said, there's so many little tricks and everything that the veteran players know. Give you one. Defensively, we have a 3-second defensive rule where the veteran players will really take it to the 2.9 second. They'll stay in that lane as long as they have to make that lane look tight and shrunk, shrunk. It doesn't look open. The veteran players, if you notice sometimes the arms get locked up or that guy trying to rotate and his pants are being pulled a little bit. You know, all those little nuances. Give you another one, John Stockton. Everybody looks at him as a nice little quiet guy from Utah. One of the dirtiest, not dirty is a bad word, but knew all the tricks. You know, Gary Payton would be trying to rotate and John Stockton stepping on his foot. Standing on his foot, just, that little split second, and then take it off. Gary can't get over and rotate, So all those little tricks, a guy will grab a guy's arm, and now as soon as he tries to get out of it, the guy flops like he's been shot. So that act, and I have a thing in basketball, you got to have an act. You got to have an act, whether it's faking, stunting, taking a charge, really selling it. You've got a pump fake is an act. A ball fake is an act. So all those little things, you got to have an act as a basketball player. And those things are really emphasized more so in training camp. Your veterans are really important in showing young players the tricks of the trade in those situations. And believe it or not, and officials will never admit it, they kind of respect the older players when they do it. Now, a young player come in and try to do it, they'll try to emphasize the rule to the letter of the law. But the older players, they respect him and they'll talk him out of it and say, hey, watch it, watch it, watch it. And if he continues to do it or he gets a great advantage, if it's obvious, they'll call a foul in that situation. But having an act is something you can teach your kids, and it's not illegal. You're not teaching them to do something that's dirty, but it's the game within the game. And that's a big difference between a younger player and a veteran player, is having an act. Okay. Right. That's a good question. My philosophy when I first came in the NBA, George Karl in Seattle, we were one of the first teams in the NBA to what they call blue, or down the pick and roll, not let him use the screen. All right? I've changed my philosophy over the years, especially after being in Dallas. I think it's personnel driven, but I'm a big show guy. I really feel like that if you have bigs that are athletic and can get out and impact the ball, hedging, showing is the best way to go, because you reroute the ball. You don't let that guy come off on the rhythm for a jump shot. You have everybody's involved. Everybody has a job to do on the backside. So it's a system defense in the pick and roll situation. So I think the only time I like to switch is at the end of the quarters and at the end of the game in a special situation. Again, it's personnel driven. Again, this in the last 3 years, one of the things one time that I really believe in now also is mixing in zone. A zone defense in the NBA is a new thing, a relatively new thing, and that's something we utilize a lot because we have deficiencies at different positions, and one thing that will help a size deficiency or quickness deficiency or whatever athleticism deficiency is a zone defense, and it's not a stand-up 7-11 zone. You know, everybody has a job to do. There's rules involved. There's rotations involved, and if we have time sometime, I'm sure one of the coaches, Coach Sterner, can talk about it, but it's something we used in Dallas last year to help us win the championship against Miami, because man-to-man wise, we could not have guarded LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and those guys in Miami. But with our zone, we put that, like you said, that much doubt. We wanted that much time to slow down LeBron's one-on-one ability. Dwayne Wade's quickness and speed coming at us gave us an advantage. We could get back and get set and could guard him in the paint.
Okay. Coach, we really appreciate your time. Okay. I know, and this is what happens. You start talking basketball, and it's great, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've been fortunate enough to sit and talk, and the next thing you know, time can go by. We appreciate you so much taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. The program is going to move on. I want to say this, because I was up there interviewing Coach, and right before we did the interview, he took the time to sign a basketball for each and every one of you today. So thank you very much for doing that as well. So when you exit Gate 5, each and every one of you will get a basketball. And not only did he take the time, obviously, to talk to you today, he was up there with the basketballs all lined up. I think he went through about 5 Sharpies doing it. So thank you very much, Coach. All right, all the best. All right, good luck tonight. One more.